This week on Capital Report, the Prospect Medical bankruptcy and what it means for 3 Connecticut hospitals.
These hospitals are very successful hospitals going forward every day.
A hospital? What is it?
It's a big building with patients. That's not important right now.
Plus, Democratic leaders unveil a plan to try and ease the burden of high utility costs.
This will be our flagship energy legislation for the 2025 session.
So I got that going, which is nice.
Plus, Governor Lamont weighs in on the spending cap.
I think the spending cap has worked. I think it's sacrosanct.
Could you repeat the word, please?
Sacrosanct.
Could I have the origin of the word, please?
I think it's really important.
While big city mayors and superintendents demand more equitable funding for schools.
We need to loosen the fiscal guardrails to get to that point.
Don't you think we should maybe ask for more than $1 million? $1 million isn't exactly a lot of money these days.
And the proposal for allowing Connecticut farmers to sell rabbit meat is back on the table.
Very, very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits.
What's up, Doc? Capital Report starts now. Welcome to Capital Report. I am Tom Dutcher. We are so glad you're spending part of this Sunday morning alongside the power panel. The great mayor of Bloomfield, Connecticut, Danielle Wong, joins us. Look who's here, Brandon McGee, head of the Social Equity Council, joins us too. Good morning. Liz Kranowitz, as always, our Republican strategy person, and Johnny Mack's with us.
Good morning, Tom.
All right, so let's get into it. Hey, tired of paying sky-high utility bills? Well, state lawmakers hear you. Last week, Democratic leaders in the Senate unveiled what's called the Ratepayers First Act. The party stating that it's its flagship legislation seeking to address cost, enhance reliability of Connecticut's power grid, increase energy production, and ensure that utility companies prioritize ratepayers ahead of shareholders. Whew, it's a big read. Sounds amazing, right? You're probably saying, hey, Tom, tell me more. Well, think of this as kind of an unveiling of a movie trailer. Super exciting to know what's coming. But as for concrete plans, well, they won't be in theaters for a few months. Watch this.
This bill is an open book. There are no specific things that we're going to talk about at this moment. The issue is the priority at this point.
It was concepts of a plan, and we look forward to hopefully working with them over the coming months to populate that legislation with as many good ideas, bipartisan ideas as possible, because Connecticut residents need relief, they deserve relief, and they especially need and deserve it in the long run.
Norm going like all John Larson with those layers there, guys, huh? Hey, so the Mark Pazniokas from the Mirror said it best in a tweet. He goes, the Senate Democrats' proposal to address CT's expensive electricity is less a solution than a process by which they hope to find one, Liz Kranowitz.
He also said that is the legislative equivalent of an IOU, which I thought was hysterical for anybody who's seen Dumb and Dumber. IOUs, they're just as good as money. Look, I think it's laughable. Mike Cerulli did an interview with Norm Needleman, I think it was last week or the week before, and also commented on the fact that there is no plan, right? So we're going to go up and we're going to do a press conference and get a lot of attention and headlines, but there's no substance there. This is not a new conversation. Almost a year ago exactly, the Republicans stood there and offered a substantive plan. Democrats looked the other way, did nothing. Republicans again came and asked for a special session, put policies on the table. Democrats ignored it. And here we are again. This is your best foot forward. This is not a new issue. Where are your solutions?
And when did we decide to have press conferences over concepts?
Over nothing.
Over concepts. Hey, here's what we're thinking about doing, you guys.
I mean, thank God, because most of the time their ideas make everything more expensive, so nothing is better than that.
One of the things I will say is we are at the start of a ledge session, and here's an opportunity to have constructive conversation regarding an issue that, by the way, we've been having for many years.
100%.
Right? And so let's talk about a plan, and hopefully in the days to come, we're able to really discuss what a plan might be to help support, many of our payers.
You're a kumbaya guy over there on the panel.
Yeah, to answer your question, when did we start having press conferences about concepts? Ever since TV started covering the legislature. That's usually what happens at the beginning. Each caucus comes out with their plan. What I hope, Brandon, I think we all agree, is that this is not going to be a partisan plan. This is going to be everybody working together, because it's going to take a lot of people working together to solve this problem. At the end of the day, it's what Governor Lamont said last week on the show. We need less demand, more supply.
Yep.
But what are they going to do about the public benefits charge? Are they going to leave it on the utility company bill? Are they going to put that into the state budget? Are they going to try to bond and put part of that on our credit card? I don't think there's an easy answer to either of those.
The devil is in the details. We need to see the substance of what they're proposing. It's not about Republican or Democrat at this point as a mayor, where people are hurting locally. We need a solution, and we do need to put ratepayers over shareholders, and it needs to happen this session.
Okay, so about a week ago, Prospect Medical Holdings filed for bankruptcy. The company owns Waterbury Hospital, Manchester Memorial Hospital, Rockville General Hospital. Company is promising that patient care will not be compromised. And if you've been following news about Prospect over the past few years, there was a deal in the works for Yale New Haven Health to buy the 3 hospitals, but that negotiations hit a few snags along the way. And now, with Prospect filing Chapter 11, everyone from Governor Lamont to patients who rely on those community hospitals are wondering what comes next. Watch this.
The governor and I have been working closely together, arm in arm, in an effort to keep these hospitals open, okay, and to facilitate a transaction to a responsible owner and party. And so if I think that litigation, a lawsuit, is the best way to achieve that goal, I will not hesitate for a second to sue.
This allows us a path forward. So the good news is if you work there, you're going to keep working there. If you provide care there, we really need you. We want to have you continue to provide care. And we're open and ready to provide care to our community.
Someone better tell the general that the Attorney General of Massachusetts and Rhode Island have been on this issue with lawsuits for over a year now, guys.
Connecticut's been out to lunch on this issue once again. This is not a surprise. And the delay is the snag, and the delay is caused by the folks who are looking the other way while this issue has happened, to the point where the hospitals are so devalued now that Yale or anyone else, what are they coming in to buy? I mean, this is a complete abdication of responsibility by everyone who was standing at that press conference.
I think there's a larger issue here with the medical systems in our country just being broken. And it's very much on Front Street as we look at Connecticut. You know, there is money to be made in the healthcare industry, which is why it gives the space, room for private equity firms to come in and swoop up our facilities. And right now we need to figure out a way to make sure, to the AG's point, to make sure that the health and the quality of health isn't jeopardized, which, you know, a lot of times when these private equity companies come in and take over the hospitals and these healthcare facilities, they slash services. So we're looking at that. It's a reality, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that the people that are needing these services the most in Waterbury, Manchester, and Rocky Hill are serviced. Where are they going to go? That's the concern.
And the state of healthcare in Connecticut and the country is you need to get bigger to be able to do it. You can't just have a standalone hospital anymore. We have 2 huge entities in Connecticut with Yale New Haven and Hartford Healthcare. We've got Northwell, which is a huge New York-based hospital, purchasing Norwalk, Danbury, and other hospitals. Look, the governor and his office have been working with Yale and working on this problem for a long time, and it just hasn't come to fruition. We need to get it over the end line.
You got anything to say for us?
I'm good, bro.
Good. Yeah, Middlesex Hospital's doing okay too, Johnny McKinney. You know, they're not a big conglomerate, right? There you go.
For now.
For now. Hey, so now that the legislative session is underway, every lawmaker is pushing their priorities in the coming months. Democratic leaders are focused on 2 issues, education and housing. And last Monday, mayors and school superintendents from Connecticut's 5 biggest cities took a ride to Hartford to call on Governor Lamont and lawmakers to increase state educational funding and to find solutions to equitably support higher needs students, which they say is destroying their school budgets. New Haven Mayor Elliker and superintendent spoke about what they are facing in New Haven. Watch this.
Every year in New Haven, we are getting about 350 kids coming in that may be identified as special education students. If I just take the cost of providing for 6 of those kids, we're talking about an average of $600,000.
If New Haven wanted to spend the same amount that New Canaan does per student, we would have to increase our budget by $81 million. So this ask of ours, that's the ECS formula, increases our budget by a fraction of that amount, and we think it's the right thing to do because, frankly, as someone that grew up in New Canaan, the students in New Haven need a lot more support than our counterparts in other places.
And following that news conference, some quick reaction from State Rep Leslie Zupkis. Take a listen to this.
I think we really need to look at every place we spend money in these areas, but across the board, and figure out what we're spending money on, and if it's working, keep it. If it's not, get rid of it, and let's try another idea.
And McGee, it was in the intranets. Lamont came out and said, "Hey, stop coming to the Capitol and asking me for money." That's what his response was.
Listen, we know that money is very important when you talk about education. But without innovation, creativity, and accountability on how we are spending these dollars in the education space, there's another question to be had there, right? And so as we continue to go throughout the ledge session, having served on the education committee, I understand the importance of the financial means to meet the needs of our students. But you gotta start talking innovation, creativity, and accountability.
Amen. Just pouring more money into our towns and cities has not, over the last decades, improved education performance. I think most of us read a just amazing story by Jessica Harkey of the Connecticut Mirror about a young 19-year-old UConn freshman who graduated through the Hartford school system, and she still can't read. We can give Mayor Elliker, more money. That wasn't going to stop what happened in the Hartford school system. It's not money. There needs to be other accountability for how the towns and cities are spending the money. So I know that, I used to say this, I know they hate it, but if we're gonna give New Haven and Bridgeport and other places more money for education, we want accountability that that money is doing what it should be doing, not bloating the bureaucracy of those cities.
Yeah, this is an issue that comes up every year in budget season. From a municipal standpoint, we're in our budget season right now, and it is a balance of money and accountability. We want to have those results delivered. But the fact of the matter is 50% plus of most cities and towns, their budget locally goes to the schools. And fixed costs are just going up. Healthcare costs are going up. Teacher union contracts are going up. And in order to suffice and fill that gap, it's either you raise local taxes or you go to the state to help supplement that. Now, $81 million, that's a big ticket item. I can't speak for Mayor Elliker, but from a local standpoint, special ed costs are going up. We have more special ed children, which is why the 119 Commission that is headed by CCM and the Dahlia Foundation is so critically and important to understand the intersectionality of how to make sure that these kids get what they need. And it isn't just money, to your point,
that's right.
Brandon and John, but it is accountability, and it does include money. So that's where I'm at.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Dahlia Foundation, because the $119,000 is a really important commission, and the work was the center of the Republican budget that was proposed last session that fully funded special education and took the ARPA money that the Democrats decided to put into higher ed. We've seen the cost overruns, the lack of accountability, and the frivolous spending that's going on there. But the Republican plan was to take that money and invest it in K-12. And I think what you're going to see in the coming week are more investments from Republicans in early education and in K-12. And what we should have done is take those resources and put it in K-12, not higher ed.
All right, guys. Up next on Capitol Report, we're going to keep the conversation going on legislative priorities with a look at the state's labor force. Newsdate's political reporter Mike Cerulli rolling up his sleeves and digging into that issue when we get back. Do not go away. Well, it was a busy week in and around the state capitol. Senate Democrats announced another push for a bill to give unemployment benefits to striking workers. Labor backs that, of course, a big-time bill. And on the other side of the labor management divide, the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, CBIA to Liz, laid out their priorities. And joining us now to discuss all of this is Newsday's political reporter, our pal Mike Cerulli. Hey, Mike, welcome back.
Great to be here with you, Tom.
Hey, Mike, tell us, Labor had something interesting to say about that striking workers bill, no?
That's exactly right. You may recall that this topic of extending unemployment benefits to striking workers led to a big fight and ultimately a veto in last year's legislative session. I asked the president of the Connecticut AFL-CIO, Ed Hawthorne, what's changed since last year? Take a listen.
Well, this time around, we have a presidential election that actually spoke to the fact that working people are upset with the way that big business is treating them. So we saw that in the presidential election. We're still blue here in Connecticut, but we're less blue now. And we really need to start listening to workers.
And you know, Tom, I found it striking how clear Hawthorne was about how he views the politics of this. It will be interesting to see if the governor agrees with Hawthorne. Lamont famously said his party needs to do a better job connecting with working families after the election. He also told us recently he doesn't think he's changed his mind on this bill from last year.
Mike, on the other side of the coin, CBIA is laying out their priorities, right?
That's right. That's right. The Chris's over at CBIA, they call their agenda Reimagine Connecticut. The very first page of that agenda, after all the introductions, talks about, you guessed it, the fiscal guardrails. They say the fiscal guardrails are positioning Connecticut to best address its biggest challenges. They go on to lay out a number of other pro-business policy priorities, Tom.
And Mike, some Democrats, I think 32 to be exact, have signed on to CBIA's policy pledges, stop the presses.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. A lot of them and a lot of notable ones. Joan Hartley, Kathy Austin, Eleni Kavros-DeGraw, Kristen McCarthy, Fahey, Jason Doucette, some important committee chairs in there, I would point out. And the governor, of course, gave the keynote address at last week's CBIA summit. We'll see if any of their tax proposals, perhaps that pass-through entity tax credit that they talk about a lot, we'll see if that shows up in his budget address next month.
Well, Mike, you have a big history of predicting things in Ned Lamont's speech, huh? Bingo. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Yeah, don't bet on it, but keep an eye out.
We'll wait for it, Mike. All right, up next on Cap Report, more from the CBIA. Governor Lamont digs into another issue that's on everyone's mind these days at the Capitol. We'll discuss when we get back. Don't go away. As he does every year, Governor Lamont took the stage at Connecticut Business and Industry Association's Economic Summit last Wednesday to discuss his priorities and how they'll impact Connecticut businesses. On the agenda, making it affordable for companies to keep doing business here in Connecticut. He talked about lowering energy costs, bending the curve on healthcare costs, staying ahead of the curve on artificial intelligence. A lot of curves here. Paying down pension debt and honoring the spending cap. Watch this. Here's some more curves.
I think the spending cap has worked. I think it's sacrosanct. I think it's really important. As I said before, it's not a straitjacket. It goes up with income, so it allows us to spend more as we earn more. And I don't want to play any games with that. There's always a sort of a tendency, let's move some of these operating expenses outside of the budget. I call them intercepts or something, and that's bad.
Gimmicks, McKinney, gimmicks, huh? Shocked to hear that there's intercepts going on.
It's
sweeps.
Shocked that we have a non-politician businessman who's seen how politics has worked and said, wait a minute, that's not how it works in the real world. I think the governor's right. We're going to see what he does with his budget address, obviously, in February, which is going to be very important. But those guardrails have worked. We need to continue to live within our means in Connecticut, and hopefully the governor's going to stand strong on that.
Yeah, I actually saw Liz there at the CBIA event. So see you, Liz. Saw you back. But it was really a reiteration of his state of the state. An informal version. He had a little fun with it, but really highlighting some of the things. He really pressed on nuclear energy, and making and there's some arguments for that, environmental friendly and things of that nature. But when I hear that as a leader of a town and a city, I hear, okay, do we have the workforce to supplement for these big visionary ideas? And we really need to think about the engineering field and making sure that we do have a workforce that is talented enough to and skillful enough to man these big energy ideas as it relates to how the town and the state shakes out in the future. So nothing new there.
And who had a lot to say on that topic, I thought, was Kathy Austin, and really talking about the need for workforce development, particularly as it impacts southeastern Connecticut, the sub-base, et cetera, where she represents. Look, the governor's been very clear what his budget address is going to involve, seemingly, are tax cuts for small businesses, right? I mean, he sort of clarified what he said at the State of the State about cutting taxes. The other day, he really made clear he's talking about small businesses. One of the things that he was not able to get done the last go-around was the pass-through entity tax. So I think everybody is going to be looking to see if that's what his focus is on. And the other thing that got brought up, obviously, was the association healthcare plans. We talk about healthcare savings and things like that. That's obviously been a big priority for the business community. So we'll be able to see where those two priorities come in his
wrap it up, McGee.
Yeah, when you're talking about guardrails, you also think about a lot of the nonprofit sector that will bear the brunt of what's happening with respect to federal dollars or the lack thereof. So it's going to be interesting to hear those conversations in the coming days.
And those are tough discussions legislators are going to have because we have not fully funded our nonprofits.
Yeah.
We need to, and they need to do it within the confines of the guardrails.
And you can do that and reduce state workforce by allowing folks who are closer to the issues in the nonprofit world to do the better job at a lower cost.
All right, guys, up next on Cal Report, an interesting proposal being served up yet again at the state capitol. We'll hop right into it when we get back. Do not go away. Rabbit season. Well, our pals at Hearst Connecticut Media reported last week that a proposal allowing Connecticut farmers to sell locally raised rabbit meat is back on the table, if you will. Senator Joe Gresko of Stratford is back in the legislation that would extend a provision that would let small Connecticut poultry farmers to sell rabbit meat in grocery stores and restaurants. Many foodies find rabbits to be a delicacy, while others, less adventurous palate, don't love the idea of cooking up Peter Cottontail. The Department of Agriculture has backed the ideas in the past. Guys, are we ready to eat the rabbits? Go down this rabbit hole?
Why are we putting the cute pictures of the bunnies next to like the cooked meat? That is awful.
This is very
I'll remain as a pescatarian.
Yeah, this is very new for New England, but I went to school down south, and this was very much
I'm going to start getting some rabbit traps and catching the ones all around my house.
We got to figure out when Easter is this year so we can pass the bill right around Easter.
I'm not going to yuck someone's yum.
This is
good
true.
luck to the farmers.
All right, that's going to do it for Cap Report. For the mayor, Brandon, Lizzie, Johnny Mac, and the Dutch. See you next week.
All right, John, you made the shot.
When he was here,
Let's go.
he made it.
Let's go. You got it.
Oh!
That was close.
You know what?